What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is MrHurriicane, and again today I'm talking about some Madden 18 news, as we've gotten a lot of information in a very short amount of time. So this one is a little bit older. It was posted last week, but it's still very important, and it's linked down below in the description. As today we are talking about defensive back and wide receiver interaction, and some improved mechanics that I'm really excited to see, and I think opens up the game in a number of ways, and I'll talk about that. So if you want to follow along, the article is linked down below, but let's get into it. So with Madden NFL 18 brings a unique metagame to the gridiron with new wide receiver DB mechanics, tailored for MUT squads but available for use in all game modes. The battle that happens between wide receivers and defensive backs will have a big impact on the passing game. So a couple years ago with Madden 16, we saw the introduction of different ways to catch, and wide receiver DB interactions has been a lot different. This seems to be some of the best changes so far, and the first one is highlight coverage. The highlight coverage indicator is an on-field assignment that tells your user-controlled player about his assignment and pass coverage, based on the play called. When applicable, you'll see lines linking your player to the receivers he should be leveraging in his zone or in man coverage, as well as a recommended path arrow showing you where he should be moving to properly leverage his targets. This tool is critical in learning all the right reads in pass coverage and can easily be toggled on or off via the visual settings menu. This is one thing that I think will help out a lot of people, is knowing how the certain zone coverage assignments and techniques are supposed to be played and what you're supposed to focus on first, and knowing where to look first and foremost. So I do like this. Then for press mechanics, this is a big section. When controlling a defender in coverage who is in range to press the receiver, there's a whole set of interactions available by using the right stick. The defender can press right or left on the stick to funnel the receiver to either side when in man or zone coverage. I'm very excited to see this be used, because I think it's definitely going to change the way a lot of our favorite routes can be timed based on how the defenders play the route, and if they jam toward the sideline or jam to the inside, for instance, it can change a lot. Also, when in man coverage, there are two additional presses available. You can be more aggressive and go for a jam straight down the middle of the receiver, or when playing off by about 3 or 4 yards, you can also press up on the right stick to lock up on your receiver and follow him up the field. The interactions triggered will be completely contextual based on the coverage called from the playbook menu. You'll see chucks in zone coverage and presses in man coverage. When using the press mechanics, there is a risk and reward to the decisions you make, so make sure to decide what you want to take away when pressing and use your teammates' help to your advantage. The animation variety will be decided by the strength rating matchup between the two players, while the win-loss result is the matchup between press versus beat press or release. And for the first time in Madden's history, you can even manually press a tight end. A lot of stuff I like there, and one thing that is going to be important is now to pay attention to the strength rating for wide receivers and defensive backs, something that I would normally ignore in the past, but now it seems like it'll be a very big deal. For a long time, I've thought about ways that you could show the gap between different players. And for wide receivers, we've always looked at speed as a key rating, and it's still a very key rating. But in terms of making it so not every 92 speed receiver is starting caliber, I think you need things like strength to matter so that they struggle to get off press coverage. And this is one of those little things that I think could make a pretty big difference in terms of what receivers can be successful. I think it also increases the value for the possession receivers who have the strength to get off press coverage and create separation that way. I am also a big fan of you being able to press tight ends and throw off the timing of their routes that tend to be very successful. Tight ends have always been a position I think that has been easy to produce with. Next up, contextual auto chucks. Another big game changer for defensive coverage is the new auto interactions. When a receiver and defender run into each other during a route, you'll see contextually appropriate two-player animations that take into account the assignments of both players as well as their awareness ratings. In some cases, this can throw off the timing of your routes just long enough to get the pass rush home, or even take one of the players completely out of the play if they aren't aware enough to know what to do on contact. This to me is another nice way to show the difference between different skilled receivers and defensive backs. Two positions that I think need to have their gaps shown. Next up, we have wide receiver release mechanics. On offense, for every press a defender can execute, the receiver will have a counter mechanic to either avoid being pressed altogether or counter out of a press once in an interaction. When controlling a receiver and anticipating a press or chuck from a defender over top of you, there are 4 different techniques available to avoid the press. First is the just go release on right trigger, which will give your player a sprinter start but is extra susceptible to the jam mechanic. You'll want to be smart about using this release as it carries a heavy risk of getting locked up by a pressing DB when used in the incorrect situations. It should be used primarily when not anticipating a press. And later in the article, they go into a little bit more depth about the mechanics for both sides and what happens based on certain decisions. It'll make sense soon. And then the most useful counters against the press are the modified releases. Those are the conservative change-up release on the A or X button and the aggressive foot-fire release on the X or square button. These can be steered to either right or left with the left stick to try and evade the defender. You'll want to get a feel for the defender's techniques and coverages so you'll know which one is most likely to get your player open to the side of your route. Lastly, there's the standard release, which is simply steering off the ball with left stick. This release will most definitely get your receiver jammed at the line, so you will only want to use this when you see the defender playing off coverage. It's the slowest, most controlled release off the line. I'm expecting this will be a little bit better explained in the skills trainer so we can get a feel for the different mechanics within this. But where I think this is a game changer is obviously for MUT squads, but also if you like playing as a player, I think wide receiver is finally something that could be fun. Because I think wide receiver was very boring in the past because you weren't doing a lot of things that receivers are asked to do. You just run to a spot and catch the football, and that's only part of the equation. Route running has never been important. Your ability to fight off press coverage has never been that important, and I think that it could be very fun this year. And then obviously for MUT squads, you can see where this ties in, having a 3v3 game, and now you have these games within the game. And I really can't wait to see how this plays out. There's a lot of potential, I think, for MUT squads, especially with Twitch, YouTube, and potential competitive play. So definitely looking forward to that, more so as a spectator, probably. The metagame between the wide receiver and DB lies in the direction each player chooses when the ball is snapped, as well as a heavy influence by the ratings of the players involved. If the receiver wants to release to the inside but the defender is pressing to the inside, the defender will have a much higher chance to win that interaction and prevent the receiver from getting into his route on time or get any separation. You'll also see different outcomes from elite players that are not available for players who aren't rated as highly. Here's a table that shows the base results for each action relative to DB pressing and wide receiver releases if all ratings are equal. So with this table, we see that the standard release is just not going to work against press coverage. It needs to be used versus off coverage. You also have the just go mechanic, which was a more aggressive choice that is also going to be easily defended by press coverage. But if you play the change-ups and foot fires correctly, then you will have a chance to get the super wins, as they call them here. And in the little guide below, it says that a loss equals press initiated, can still cut out of the press. Super loss is locked up and rarely thrown to the ground. Super win, instant separation. Note, DB will not always be pressing, which is where standard and just go releases are utilized. So that is one aspect of this game I'm really excited to see play out and how it's going to change the passing game. These changes can go a long way toward giving us an authentic Madden experience. We have a few more things down below. Cut out of press mechanic. Don't worry, if you guess wrong and fail to avoid being pressed, When playing as a receiver and finding yourself in a press interaction, you can attempt to cut out of the press and get into your route by using the right stick in any direction. Based on the leverage of the defender and the direction the receiver is trying to release, you'll see many different techniques and outcomes for the receiver trying to get open. The win-loss result of the interaction is based on the receiver's beat press plus strength rating versus the defender's press plus strength ratings. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier and also points out the fact that just because the defender does get a good press on you does not mean the play is over for you. When you look at the chart, it does look like the defender has a huge advantage, but that is just talking about initiating press coverage. Route running and cut move mechanics. Once you are into your route stem and out of any interactions that may trigger off the line, there's some important mechanics to note when finishing your route. The left stick will steer the receiver anywhere you want him to go, but when using only left stick, you cannot make any sharp cuts to gain separation. To make sharp cuts, you must hold down the RB or R1 button to lock in your current moving direction, and then flick the right stick in one of 8 directions to make a sharp cut. This can be used as a combo as well as to make double moves and fake out man coverage defenders. Left stick control will not be returned until the right bumper or R1 button is released. I think this makes the meta game with the receiver and cornerback very interesting, especially for MUT squads. And I like that you'll have a little bit better control over route running than you would have in the past using a receiver. Then we have call for ball. Lastly, we've improved our current call for ball mechanic to give a visual indicator to your quarterback that you're open. When you want the ball, simply press the A or X button, and your player indicator will light up to tell your quarterback in MUT squads you are open. This will be accompanied by the call for ball animation. While these mechanics were spawned for the team play style of MUT squads, all are available to be used in all modes, including franchise, MUT, and online head-to-head. Even the AI control players will be using the mechanics, again based heavily on their assignment on the given play call and their relevant ratings to each situation. The new meta completely changes the way the passing game plays, and wide receiver DB mechanics are something you'll want to get familiar with to become a Madden champion. I really enjoyed the information in this article, and I'm glad that they are still developing upon what was started a couple of years ago with wide receiver and DB interactions. This is a lot deeper and a lot more authentic, and it's going to, I think, be a very welcome change to the game. And especially for someone like me that wants the most authentic gameplay experience possible, I am very excited about this. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section, and please drop a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for much more Madden 18 news and especially content when the game drops. And I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day.